A brand new Maruti Suzuki Wagon R, and this one is rather exclusive. I say that since it's been developed just for India and is not like the Japanese Wagon R, for instance. That is because unlike the K car spec Wagon R, the one we've got is now bigger, much bigger. That is primarily because it moves to the company's Heartect platform that also spawns the Swift, Ignis and other siblings. What this does is allows the car to not just be bigger in size and cabin terms, but also in muscle and therefore design terms too. Now, from my first look video from the launch of this car, I got a lot of interesting comments from a lot of you, and I have to say the same thing happened when I posted pictures on Twitter. I said that it's nice to see that the Wagon R has finally gotten a little bit good looking. It's got some sculpting in the metal that's been possible because of the wider track. The car is wider, and so, they had more room to play with, especially here in the shoulder where you could kind of come out and do something. And all of you kind of piled on me and said, hold on a second, it looks like a bread box. What are you comparing it to? Because if you're comparing it to a Chevrolet Corvette, yes, you'll be disappointed. Compare it to the last Wagon R. I mean, do you ever see good looks and Wagon R in the same sentence? It never happened. It's finally starting to happen, and that's because you have more character in the face. You've also got a little style that's been thrown in. I mean, look at the way this metal element comes into the headlamp. Even the bumper has been kind of sporty in its profile and style. And then, of course, that sculpting, you've got that. It's not too exaggerated. It kind of enhances the wheel arches over here as far as that line is concerned. And then you've got this very specific line that travels through the shoulder and then up into the tail lamp, and then a little bit of a floating roof feel with the black element back here. Now, is it the best build quality? No, but again, just compare to the last Wagon R. Even at the back, the car looks nice and wide. The vertical tail lamps finally work, and just that sense of the fact that the car has gotten bigger is just so pronounced. And I think, given the customer who likes this kind of a car, who wants a tall boy, well, they're finally going to get a little bit of style, a little bit of panache as well. That's not a bad thing. Not bad at all. If I want to nitpick, the wheels are too small and bigger ones would have made the car look much better. As also a thicker rear overhang, which would have helped proportions somewhat better. In general though, I like the design and the sense of width and interior space it implies. The height is terrific too, and you'll soon see why. But first, let's get this baby on the road. If you hadn't guessed it, I am in the city of lakes, Udaipur, to test this car. And yes, I'm driving the new 1.2-litre petrol engine with the AMT or AGS as Maruti calls it. Both the manual and auto are 5-speed, and the whole idea was to offer a more powerful Wagon R, which is why we get this new engine. Now, I've spent half a day driving this car, and I can tell you that it's just miles ahead of where the last Wagon R was. I mean, you expect that with each new generation. I think in the context of the Wagon R in particular, given that, previously all the updates and changes we saw were just marginally incremental. On this car, yes, it's a huge departure because pretty much every department you can think of, and especially in performance terms, you get a more assured, a much more ample product now. So, ride handling, definitely improved. The ride quality has a bigger car, more stable and comfortable feel. And this is surprisingly enhanced by the overall ride height and even the higher seating. Handling is much improved and the car is more precise, though the steering is still dull. The engine also gets rather noisy in the higher revs, which is a bit off-putting. But overall, the car is so much of a step up. And of course, even the AMT, Unlike some of the previous AMTs from Maruti, we saw this with the Vitara Brezza. I mean, it's finally coming around now to a point where it's starting to get a lot smoother. I wish it could be a little bit quicker, both in terms of gear changes and also the response you get when you go from, let's say, reverse quickly into drive. You know, it still hesitates and pauses a little bit, but that's an AMT. Having said that, you do have better AMTs now on the market, like the one on the Santro, and so we'd like to see even more from Maruti. But as an overall package, yeah, this works. The engine is definitely quick and allows for good initial acceleration. It has also been tuned to eke out better mileage though, and while that is obvious on the AMT, I'll wait till I drive the manual to see just how much. Do remember though that Maruti has played it smart and is offering the old car's 1-litre K10 engine too. And frankly, given how light this new platform is, that will do the job well enough. Good news is that the 1-litre gets the AMT option and it has been retuned to offer higher than before mileage as well. At 22.5 kilometers per litre, that's a whole 2 kilometers per litre higher than the outgoing car. So of course the idea is to try and get you the most comprehensive review, and which is why I have now switched from the autumn orange to the poolside blue. The difference, not the engine. This is still the 1.2, but the manual car, and so now I'm also getting out onto the highway. The manual transmission is still the 5-speed box we've been used to, but it is on the manual more than the AMT that you appreciate the higher position of the gear shifter. It is easy to reach and well placed for quick and easy changes. Now, as it's true with any manual and automatic, AMT automatic, of course there's a stark difference, and of course the manual is a lot more fun. The gearbox is nicely mated to the engine, though I have to say that, there's all this talk about how they've intentionally added the 1.2 because there was demand from the consumer that they wanted a more powerful Wagon R than the last one. Well, it is more powerful than the last one, but don't misconstrue that to mean that it's some kind of a highway monster. It's still a good urban family car. It's not really trying to be anything else. And while, like I said, it is faster, it starts to sort of top off at about 90 kilometers per hour, gets there pretty quickly on the highway too now, I've seen. But after that, it's almost a bit of a tedious 10 kilometers per hour increase to 100, and then a struggle to get to about 120. Kind of tops off there. You can really push it a little bit harder. Maybe it'll go to 121. So while it is all very obviously tuned towards higher mileage, I am not disappointed by all of that in the least. This is not necessarily a high-speed cruiser, is it? It is quite purpose-built, and I believe as Wagon R customers and their needs go, it does the job very well. Does that mean I can't be greedy? Of course not. I would definitely have liked to see more happening, especially on the 1.2 K12 version. Fatter tires, a tighter steering, now that would have been great. Now in the past, many people always called Maruti cars tin cans. I know some of you have called this one that too, but having said that, it's really a massive step away from those cars now. I mean, it's the new generation of Maruti cars. So with the hard-tech platform, I'm quite confident that this car is therefore a lot better. Now, the better build quality of course shows up in the dynamics. I've been saying that already, but it's not just about that. I mean, it's also about the safety and the ratings of those safety features. The better build quality, well, the reason I say that is not just because of the hard-tech platform. It's also because of what Maruti's been doing. It's been investing in all of that. You have the new crash lab that it has of its own. And going by the previous cars, because I don't have an official star rating for this car yet, but going by what's been happening with the more recent models at Maruti, I have to say I feel pretty confident about how this car would be a lot better built than the last Wagon R. Now time to jump inside where a lot is new. Very refreshed cabin, completely new appeal and a huge sense of space. That's what you get when you get into this car because, well, look at this space. I mean, the headroom, almost exaggeratedly large. You get a good sense of legroom and easy ingress and egress, so that's all really nice. Also what you expect from the Wagon R, but certainly much better than the last car. The same is true of the materials and the color palette. It looks a lot more upmarket, it's better finished. And the seats, something new from Maruti, you got asymmetrical design here because you've got a border on the outside and of course nothing on the inner part. So that's nice, that's something different. But all the focus these days is also almost always on connectivity and interface, and here is where you have a big news story from Maruti, because the Wagon R is the first car to get the Smartplay Studio. That is the new interface. It moves away from the last system you saw in pretty much every model, and now the new cars will all get this. I mean, the new Baleno facelift this week has also got this. So yes, the Wagon R is the first one. So what it does is, it of course lets you integrate your phone to it. You can marry it over Bluetooth or through the cable, as I have done right now. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, of course, hygiene these days, as Maruti says. But it also has the Smartplay Studio app, which lets you do a whole bunch of stuff. Connect to the cloud, then of course even use its own navigation through your phone's connectivity. And it's pretty effective. I have been using it this morning, it works well. Besides that, of course, music, radio, phone features, and you can of course play music through your phone as an iPod, but you also get a little bit of vehicle information, which is new. So you have the average mileage and the distance to empty that shows up. It's pretty effective. You can integrate 3 devices to this now. So you could be listening to music on one, making a call on a second, and maybe using the third for navigation. So that's again something new that Smartplay Studio lets you do. Instruments, fairly basic and simple. I wish it wasn't amber because that makes it look a little bit dated, but otherwise the layout is nice. Lots of controls here on the steering wheel, typical of what you now expect from Maruti, and some cubby holes to keep a few things, and lots of cup holders and bottle holders all around.
At the back, you get even more space, and frankly, for those who want to be driven by a chauffeur, this is pure gold. Huge legroom, massive headroom, and a reasonably comfortable seat. The lack of contouring on the seat back or even a drop-down armrest, though, are the only sticking points. The Maruti Suzuki Wagon R is still priced quite attractively. Prices start just above 4 lakh rupees, so there was no undercutting of the competition like the Hyundai Santro. But that second engine option is a smart idea, like I said, and that takes prices up to 5,70,000 rupees ex-showroom. The new car will move to BS6 engines only next year, but launching it with auto options on both engine types, and finally a top spec auto from word go, was smart on Maruti's part. The big new Wagon R does move the segment benchmark higher overall, as it gets almost everything right.